Some facts are so oddly specific, they feel like they escaped from a trivia night no one asked for. From mathematical patterns that repeat forever to ancient cities that couldn't stop starting wars, we're diving into the deep end of the fascinatingly unnecessary. I'm your friendly neighborhood narrator, and this is the part of the internet where curiosity wins and productivity takes a nap. Let's get into it.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
Graphene is a single atom-thick sheet of carbon atoms arranged in a two-dimensional honeycomb lattice. Basically, imagine chicken wire at the atomic level. It's incredibly strong, about 200 times stronger than steel, yet so thin it's nearly transparent. Discovered in 2004 by Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novoselov, this material conducts electricity and heat with amazing efficiency. It's like carbon's superhero form. Simple, elegant, and ridiculously powerful for its size. Symbolic convergence theory explains how people form a shared identity through storytelling and shared experiences. Developed by Ernest Borman in the 1970s, it suggests that when groups share common symbols or inside jokes, they develop a collective consciousness. Think of it like how fans of a show or gamers in a community feel instantly connected. They share the same fantasy theme, which binds them together emotionally. The example district of Barcelona is instantly recognizable from above, a perfect grid of octagonal blocks, each with chamfered corners. Designed by Ildefons Cerdà in the 19th century, the plan aimed to bring sunlight, fresh air, and better traffic flow into the growing city. The result is a neighborhood that looks like it was planned with geometric precision, balancing beauty with practicality. A kind of urban engineering masterpiece. In maritime law, the rule of general average says that if part of a ship or cargo is intentionally sacrificed to save the voyage, everyone shares the loss proportionally. So, if a captain throws cargo overboard during a storm to keep the ship afloat, the owners of the saved goods must help cover the loss. It's an old principle, dating back to ancient Greece, built on a simple idea: fairness in shared risk. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 saw King James II of England overthrown without much bloodshed. Parliament invited William of Orange, a Dutch ruler and James's son-in-law, to take the throne. The event shifted England toward a constitutional monarchy, where the king ruled with Parliament's consent. It was glorious, not for its drama, but for how quietly it rewrote the balance of power in British history. The Many Worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics proposes that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually happens, just in separate universes. So when you flip a coin, in one world, it lands heads, and in another, tails. Proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957, it avoids the idea of a collapsing wave function entirely. It's a strange but mathematically consistent way to imagine an infinite stack of parallel realities. An abugida is a writing system where each symbol represents a consonant, followed by a default vowel, which can be changed with marks. It's different from an alphabet, where each sound has its own letter. Scripts like Devanagari, used for Hindi or Amharic in Ethiopia, follow this pattern. It's an elegant halfway point between alphabets and syllabaries. Compact, efficient, and beautifully logical. The ADFG cipher was a secret code used by the German army during World War I. It combined a modified Polybius square with a columnar transposition, using only the letters A, D, F, G, V, and X. These letters were chosen because they sounded distinct over radio transmissions. It was complex for its time, like a mechanical lock with 2 layers of encryption, and proved difficult for enemies to crack until late in the war. The Battle of Actium, fought in 31 BCA, was the decisive naval clash that ended the Roman Republic. Octavian's fleet faced the combined forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra off the coast of Greece. When Cleopatra's ships fled mid-battle, Antony followed, leaving his forces to collapse. Octavian's victory gave him total control, and soon he became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The Abilene paradox describes when a group agrees to a decision that no one actually wants, simply to avoid conflict. The term comes from a story where a family drives to Abilene for dinner, even though none of them wanted to go. Each assumed the others did. It's a perfect example of groupthink gone wrong. Cooperation that backfires because everyone's too polite to disagree. COBOL, created in 1959, stands for Common Business-Oriented Language. It was designed to be easy to read, almost like plain English, so non-programmers could understand it. Despite being over 60 years old, COBOL still runs critical systems in banks, airlines, and governments. It's the programming equivalent of an old mainframe humming quietly in the corner. Outdated but irreplaceable. The Suez Crisis of 1956 began when Egypt's president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, nationalized the Suez Canal. In response, Israel, Britain, and France launched a joint invasion to regain control. Under pressure from the United States and the Soviet Union, they withdrew. The event marked the decline of British and French colonial influence and showed that global power had shifted to the new superpowers of the Cold War. The Jacquerie was a violent peasant revolt that erupted in northern France in 1358 during the chaos of the Hundred Years' War. Tired of high taxes and constant raids, peasants rose against the nobility, destroying estates and attacking castles. The rebellion was brutally crushed within weeks, but it exposed the deep social rift between the ruling elite and those who worked the land. The holographic principle suggests that everything within a three-dimensional space can be described by information encoded on its two-dimensional boundary. It's a cornerstone idea in string theory and quantum gravity. In simpler terms, it's like the universe being a kind of cosmic projection, where all the data that defines reality might be stored on the surface, not the inside. A eutectic system is a mixture of substances that melts or solidifies at a single, sharply defined temperature, lower than the melting point of any of its parts. The term comes from Greek, meaning easily melted. Solder, for example, is often eutectic, which makes it ideal for electronics. It's chemistry's way of saying that some combinations just work perfectly together. Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, blends history and modern life in a uniquely European way. The city's upper town, with its medieval streets, contrasts beautifully with the Austro-Hungarian architecture below. Street markets, tram lines, and cafe culture fill its lively squares. It's both old world and energetic, the kind of place where you can walk through centuries in an afternoon. The graviton is a hypothetical particle believed to carry the force of gravity, much like photons carry light. In quantum field theory, it's imagined as massless and always moving at light speed. Scientists haven't detected it yet, but if it exists, it would unite general relativity and quantum mechanics, two of physics' biggest puzzles. It's the ghost particle that could explain how space itself pulls on matter. The Battle of Waterloo, fought on June 18, 1815, was Napoleon Bonaparte's final defeat. Near the village of Waterloo in modern-day Belgium, British forces under the Duke of Wellington joined Prussian troops to crush Napoleon's army. The loss ended more than 2 decades of war in Europe and marked the end of an era, the fall of the man who once ruled almost the entire continent. Cire Perdue, or lost wax casting, is an ancient technique for making metal sculptures. Artists first shape a model in wax, cover it with clay, then heat it so the wax melts out, leaving a hollow mold. Molten metal is then poured in to take its place. This method, used since the Bronze Age, allows for stunning detail, from delicate jewelry to grand statues. A herm is a type of ancient Greek sculpture, showing a head, often of Hermes, set atop a square pillar. Sometimes it included carved genitals, symbolizing fertility and protection. These were placed at crossroads or doorways as guardians of travelers and homes. What might look like a simple stone marker actually carried deep religious and cultural meaning. Stoneman syndrome, or fibrodysplasia osteogenesis progressiva, is a rare genetic disorder where muscle and connective tissue slowly turn into bone. Even small injuries can trigger new bone growth, locking joints and limiting movement. Fewer than 1 in 2 million people have it. Over time, the body forms a second skeleton, making the simplest movements nearly impossible. The Stark effect occurs when an external electric field causes the spectral lines of atoms to split or shift. Discovered by Johannes Stark in 1913, it helped scientists understand how electric forces influence atomic energy levels. You can think of it like tuning a guitar string. Apply tension, and the pitch changes. In atoms, it's the light that shifts, revealing the invisible forces at play. A fullerene is a form of carbon where atoms link together in a hollow, cage-like structure made of pentagons and hexagons, much like a soccer ball. Discovered in 1985, the most famous one is Buckminster fullerene, or C60. These molecules have unusual strength and stability, inspiring research in nanotechnology, materials, and even medicine. Quantum tunneling is a phenomenon where particles pass through barriers that should be impossible to cross. It happens because, in quantum mechanics, Particles also act like waves that can leak through walls. It's the reason the sun shines. Tunneling allows nuclear fusion to occur at lower energies than classical physics would predict. It's as if a tennis ball rolled straight through a brick wall, just because the universe said quantum rules. The uncanny valley is the eerie feeling we get when something looks almost human, but not quite. Think of a robot or digital face that moves realistically but seems slightly off. The term, coined by Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori in 1970, describes that dip in comfort we feel, where lifelike imitation stops being charming and starts being unsettling. It's as if our brains can't decide whether to see it as human or machine. In law, conspiracy means an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime in the future. The key is the agreement itself, even if the act hasn't been carried out yet. For example, if two people plan a bank robbery and buy masks, that's already conspiracy. The law treats it seriously because coordination makes crimes far more dangerous than lone ideas ever could. The Hand of Glory was one of Europe's darker folk legends. A mummified hand of a hanged man, often a thief, believed to hold magical powers. Some thought lighting the fingers like candles could freeze people in place or unlock doors. Tales of its use spread through France and England in the 17th century. Whether real or imagined, it's a chilling mix of superstition and old-world mysticism. The Pastry War sounds almost silly by name, but it was a real 1838 conflict between France and Mexico. It began when a French pastry chef claimed his shop in Mexico City had been looted by Mexican officers. France demanded compensation. When Mexico refused, French forces blockaded the coast. The skirmish ended months later, over pastries, pride, and politics. The Denali Fault is a massive crack in Earth's crust stretching from northwestern British Columbia to central Alaska. It's a right lateral strike-slip fault, meaning the land on each side moves horizontally past the other. In 2002, it produced one of North America's strongest inland earthquakes, shaking even the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. It's a reminder that even far from oceans, the ground can still tear itself apart. Laswell's model of communication, proposed by Harold Laswell in 1948, breaks communication into 5 questions. Who says what? In which channel? To whom? And with what effect? It's like the simplest blueprint for understanding how information travels, from the sender to the audience, through a medium with a measurable outcome. It laid the groundwork for modern media studies and political communication. The bronze of the Bronze Age wasn't a single metal, but an alloy, mostly copper, mixed with tin to make it stronger and more durable. This discovery around 3300 BCE revolutionized tools, weapons, and art. It was like upgrading from wood to steel in ancient times, letting civilizations build and conquer with a new metallic edge. An accretion disk forms when gas and dust spiral around a massive object like a star, black hole, or planet. As the material orbits, friction heats it up until it glows brightly, often in X-rays. You can imagine it as a cosmic whirlpool, where gravity pulls matter inward and energy radiates outward. It's one of the most dramatic sights in astronomy, powered purely by falling matter. Perjury is the act of lying under oath, deliberately making a false statement after promising to tell the truth. It's not just dishonest, it's a direct attack on the justice system. If someone swears in court that they were elsewhere during a crime when they weren't, that's perjury. Because truth under oath is the foundation of law, it's treated as a serious offense. The Gallipoli campaign took place during World War I on the Gallipoli Peninsula in modern-day Turkey. Allied forces, mainly British, French, Australian, and New Zealand troops, tried to open a sea route to Russia through the Dardanelles Strait. Poor planning and fierce Ottoman defense led to heavy losses on both sides. It lasted 8 months and ended in failure, becoming a defining moment in national memory, especially for Australia and New Zealand. The Peltier effect, discovered by Jean-Charles Peltier in 1834, occurs when an electric current passes through 2 different conductors and creates a temperature change at their junction. Depending on the direction of current, one side heats while the other cools. It's the same principle behind thermoelectric coolers, solid-state devices that can chill electronics or even portable refrigerators. Fatigue in materials happens when something is repeatedly stressed until it weakens and breaks. You can think of it like bending a paperclip back and forth. It doesn't snap immediately, but tiny cracks grow with each bend. Over time, those microscopic flaws cause failure. Engineers study fatigue to prevent disasters in airplanes, bridges, and machines that live under constant load. The Paris Agreement on Climate Change, adopted in 2015, has an interesting legal setup. Countries are required to submit plans to cut emissions. That part is binding. But the actual targets they set aren't. It's designed to encourage global cooperation while respecting each nation's flexibility. It's more carrot than stick, relying on shared pressure rather than strict enforcement. The Sonderweg theory, meaning special path in German, argues that Germany's route to modern democracy was unique compared to other European nations. It suggests that Germany moved from feudalism to industrial power without the same liberal revolutions others had. Critics say it oversimplifies history, but it's a long-debated idea about why Germany's past, especially before World War II, unfolded differently. In Japanese martial arts, a kata is a structured sequence of movements practiced repeatedly to master technique and precision. Each motion is deliberate, like choreography that encodes strategy, rhythm, and balance. Samurai once trained with katas as mental and physical discipline. Today, karate and judo students still perform them, a living link between ancient combat and modern art. The Library of Congress preserves the earliest sound recordings made with acoustic, mechanical recording, a technology that captures vibrations mechanically, without electricity. Among its treasures are wax cylinders recorded by Alexander Graham Bell in the 1800s. Modern scientists use non-contact scanning and digital restoration to recover those vibrations, allowing us to hear voices long thought lost. It's like opening a time capsule of sound itself. Shape notes are a music notation system developed in early 19th century America to help church communities sing together without formal training. Each note head has a unique shape representing a pitch in the scale. It made reading music more intuitive, especially in sacred harp singing traditions. The style still survives today, simple, powerful, and meant for shared voices over perfect performance. The city of Ashgabat, the capital of Turkmenistan, holds the world record for having the highest concentration of white marble buildings. Nearly every structure gleams in the desert sun, giving the skyline a surreal, polished look. The material reflects not just light, but the country's desire for grandeur. An entire city designed to shine, quite literally. Plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, a gas so energized that atoms split into ions and electrons. It's found in lightning, fluorescent lights, and stars, including our sun. Unlike solid, liquid, or gas, plasma conducts electricity and responds to magnetic fields. In short, it's the universe's favorite form of matter, glowing with raw energy. The no true Scotsman fallacy happens when someone changes the definition of a group to protect a generalization. For instance, if one says, "No Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge," and someone replies that they know one who does, the answer might be, well, no true Scotsman would. It's a clever dodge, moving the goalposts instead of admitting the exception. Nicosia, the capital of Cyprus, is the world's last divided capital city. A UN-controlled buffer zone, known as the Green Line, separates the Greek Cypriot south from the Turkish Cypriot north. The split dates back to the 1970s conflict between the two communities. Today, crossing points connect both sides, but the division still defines the city's identity. The firewall paradox is a thought experiment about black holes that challenges our understanding of information and relativity. It suggests that instead of a smooth event horizon, there might be a blazing firewall that destroys anything falling in. If true, it would break the idea that nothing unusual happens at the edge of a black hole. It's physics at its strangest, where theory meets contradiction. The photon sphere is a region around a black hole where gravity is so intense that light can orbit the black hole in perfect circles. It marks the boundary, where photons bend completely around the object instead of escaping. For an observer, it defines part of the geometry that shapes what we see as the bright ring around a black hole. Though the 2019 Event Horizon Telescope image actually captured the shadow and glowing emission from matter just outside the photon sphere. It's where space curves so tightly that even light seems trapped in indecision. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571 was one of the most significant naval clashes in history. It pitted the Holy League, a coalition of European Catholic states, against the Ottoman Empire in the Gulf of Patras near Greece. The Christian fleet, armed with hundreds of galleys, achieved a decisive victory that halted Ottoman expansion into the Mediterranean. It was the last major battle fought entirely between road warships, marking the twilight of an era in naval warfare. Magnetohydrodynamics, often shortened to MHD, studies how magnetic fields interact with electrically conducting fluids, like plasmas, molten metals, or salt water. Imagine combining the rules of electricity, magnetism, and fluid motion all at once. It's the physics behind solar flares, fusion reactors, and even some propulsion systems. Essentially, it's how magnetic fields can steer liquid electricity through space or machinery. The Pareto principle, also called the 80-20 rule, observes that about 80% of effects come from just 20% of causes. The idea came from Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who noticed in the 1890s that most of Italy's land was owned by a small fraction of people. Today, it's used everywhere, from business, where a few clients bring most profits, to daily life, where a few habits shape most results. In law, force majeure describes events so unexpected and uncontrollable, like earthquakes, wars, or floods, that they excuse someone from fulfilling a contract. If a factory can't deliver goods because a hurricane destroyed its supply chain, that's force majeure. It doesn't erase responsibility entirely, but acknowledges that sometimes nature or chaos simply overrules human plans. A ziggurat is a massive terrace structure built in ancient Mesopotamia resembling a step pyramid. Each level receded as it rose, leading to a shrine at the top. These weren't tombs like Egyptian pyramids, but temples, earthly stairways to the heavens. The most famous, the Great Ziggurat of Ur, still rises from the desert after 4,000 years, a stone echo of faith and architecture. The color Isabelline is a pale grayish yellow with a curious legend behind its name. It's said that Archduchess Isabella Clara Eugenia, daughter of Philip II of Spain, vowed not to change her undergarments until the siege of Ostend ended, a military standoff that dragged on for over 3 years between 1601 and 1604. Whether the tale is fact or folklore, the name Isabelline humorously endures as a tribute to her supposed patience and perseverance, or perhaps her unfortunate sense of timing. The Papal Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome often surprises visitors, because it, not St. Peter's, is the Pope's actual cathedral. It's the oldest and highest ranking of the 4 major basilicas, serving as the official ecclesiastical seat of the Bishop of Rome. Dating back to the 4th century, it's where many popes were enthroned and where the Catholic Church's authority is symbolically rooted. The Halifax gibbet was an early execution device used in Halifax, England, centuries before the guillotine became infamous in France. It worked on a similar principle, a weighted blade sliding between 2 posts to decapitate the condemned. Records show it was used from the 13th to 17th century. Its grim efficiency made it a practical, if unsettling, precursor to later mechanized justice. The Inuktitut language, spoken by Inuit communities in the Arctic, has a rich system of affixes that allows entire sentences to be built into single words. For example, one word can mean, "I will go to the store," simply by layering prefixes and suffixes. It's a linguistic snowball, concise, elegant, and perfectly adapted to the rhythm of daily Arctic life. The consistent history's interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed in the 1990s, offers a way to describe quantum systems without invoking measurement or wave function collapse. It treats reality as a set of self-consistent histories, each internally logical, but not interfering with others. Think of it as physics' way of saying multiple possible pasts can coexist, as long as each one makes sense on its own. Among the famous Nazca lines in Peru, one geoglyph depicts a spider with astonishing biological accuracy. Researchers identified it as resembling a spider from the genus Ricinulae, an extremely rare species found only in the Amazon rainforest, hundreds of kilometers away. How ancient artists knew such detail remains a mystery, adding a curious twist to these desert drawings. Kepler's laws of planetary motion, formulated by Johannes Kepler in the early 1600s, describe how planets orbit the sun. The first states that their paths are ellipses, not perfect circles. The second explains that planets move faster when they're closer to the sun. The third links a planet's orbital period to its distance from the sun. Together, these laws transformed celestial motion from poetry into precise mathematics. The mineral cavensite is prized by collectors for its electric blue color, often forming delicate rosette-like clusters. Found mainly in India and a few other regions, its name combines calcium, vanadium, and silicon, the elements that form it. Under light, it seems almost to glow from within, making it one of the most photogenic minerals in the geological world. The Bradshaw rock paintings, also known as Guion art, decorate cliffs across Western Australia's Kimberley region. These ancient artworks, estimated to be over 12,000 years old, depict graceful human figures with elaborate clothing and headdresses. Their fine detail and mysterious origins make them one of Australia's oldest and most debated cultural treasures. The Gobustan rock art site in Azerbaijan contains more than 6,000 carvings dating back as far as 40,000 years. The images of humans, animals, and hunting scenes are etched into the sandstone hills near the Caspian Sea. The area also features ancient mud volcanoes and musical stone formations, offering a glimpse into the deep continuity of human creativity. The Hanseatic League was a powerful alliance of merchant guilds and market towns that dominated northern European trade from the 13th to 17th centuries. Centered around cities like Lübeck and Hamburg, it controlled routes for goods like timber, salt, and grain. It wasn't a country, but acted like one, with fleets, diplomacy, and economic influence that stretched across the Baltic. The Cambrian explosion, about 541 million years ago, was a sudden evolutionary burst when most major animal groups first appeared. Fossil evidence from places like the Burgess Shale shows a wild diversity of the new body forms, from trilobites to early chordates. It's as if evolution went from sketches to a full portfolio almost overnight, biologically speaking. The chi-squared test is a statistical method used to check whether observed data differ from what's expected. When the test statistic follows a chi-squared distribution, it helps researchers see if patterns are due to chance or real influence. It's widely used in fields like genetics and social science. The math behind questions like, is this difference meaningful or just random noise? An isthmus is a narrow strip of land connecting two larger areas, bordered by water on both sides, like Panama linking North and South America. The word comes from the Greek isthmos, meaning neck, which fits perfectly. It's the Earth's version of a slender bridge between continents. These land connections have shaped trade, migration, and even climate across millennia. The Edict of Milan, issued in 313 AD by Roman emperors Constantine and Licinius, granted religious tolerance throughout the empire. It officially ended centuries of persecution against Christians, allowing them to worship openly and own property. The edict didn't make Christianity the state religion yet, but it paved the way for that transformation within a few decades. The Joule effect, named after James Prescott Joule, describes how electric current produces heat when passing through a conductor. The amount of heat depends on the current, resistance, and time, a principle behind every toaster, heater, and incandescent bulb. It's electricity at its simplest, energy turning into warmth through pure resistance. Conformal cyclic cosmology, proposed by physicist Roger Penrose, suggests that the universe goes through endless cycles, each Big Bang following the stretched-out end of the previous cosmos. Time and space themselves reset in an infinite sequence. It's a bold idea, imagining the universe not as a one-time event, but as a cosmic heartbeat that never stops. X-ray crystallography is a technique for determining the atomic structure of crystals by analyzing how X-rays scatter through them. First demonstrated in 1912, it revealed the double helix shape of DNA and the arrangements of countless minerals and proteins. It's like taking an X-ray photograph of atoms, seeing the invisible architecture of matter itself. The programming language APL stands out for its use of unique graphic symbols instead of traditional words and operators. Created in the 1960s by Kenneth Iverson, it requires a specialized keyboard just to type its commands. Despite the steep learning curve, APL remains admired for its elegance and brevity, where a few cryptic characters can replace entire lines of code. A mental model is like an invisible diagram your brain builds to explain how something works. When you turn a key and the car starts, you imagine the engine firing up, even if you've never seen it happen. These inner blueprints help us predict what comes next, solve problems, and make decisions. Everyone's mental models differ slightly, shaping how each person interprets the same event. A tell in archaeology isn't a clue someone slips during poker. It's a mound made by centuries of people living in the same spot. Each time a settlement was rebuilt, new layers of mud, bricks, and artifacts piled up. Over generations, this formed an artificial hill. When excavated, a tell reveals entire timelines of human life, stacked one atop another like a historical layer cake. The Bravais lattice is the geometric skeleton behind every crystal. It's an infinite grid of repeating points that show how atoms arrange themselves in space. Auguste Bravais, a French physicist, described 14 possible ways this pattern can repeat back in 1850. Think of it as nature's blueprint for building diamonds, salts, and metals, all through mathematical symmetry. The Bhimbetka rock shelters in central India are like a time capsule painted in stone. Hidden in the sandstone hills, they contain art dating back over 30,000 years, showing humans hunting, dancing, and living through the Paleolithic and Mesolithic ages. These caves, discovered in 1957, are among the earliest records of human imagination and daily life. A looter's band is what happens when metal gives in under stress. Stretch a steel bar, and faint lines sometimes slide across its surface. Those are looter's bands. They mark areas where the metal briefly yields before hardening again. It's like watching tiny shock waves ripple through solid material, revealing the moment it starts to deform. The Napoleonic Wars were a whirlwind of European conflict between 1803 and 1815. Led by Napoleon Bonaparte, France battled coalitions of shifting allies: Britain, Russia, Austria, and more. These wars redrew the map of Europe, spread revolutionary ideals, and made Napoleon both a symbol of genius and ambition gone too far. Triboluminescence is light born from force. Crush a sugar cube in the dark, and you might catch a spark. That's it. When chemical bonds suddenly break, the released energy appears as a flash of blue light. Scientists compare it to miniature lightning created by mechanical stress, proof that even ordinary objects can glow under pressure. A Flettner rotor ship looks strange, like a boat, with giant spinning tubes instead of sails. Those cylinders use the Magnus effect. When wind blows past them, it creates thrust that propels the ship. Invented in the 1920s by Anton Flettner, it's a clever blend of aerodynamics and engineering that lets vessels sail using physics, not fabric. The Kerr effect happens when electricity changes how light moves through a material. Apply an electric field to glass or crystal, and its refractive index shifts slightly, bending light in new ways. It's subtle, but powerful. This effect forms the basis for high-speed optical devices used in communication and laser technology today. In heraldry, colors carry symbolic meaning, but some are rarely used. Sanguine, a deep reddish-brown, also called murrey, and tene, a brownish-orange, are known as stains. Unlike the standard heraldic tinctures of gold, silver, red, blue, green, black, and purple, these non-standard hues appeared only occasionally, often for distinctive or decorative purposes, though sometimes misunderstood as symbols of dishonor. In truth, they simply occupied a marginal place in heraldic tradition. A wormhole is a theoretical tunnel through space-time, a kind of cosmic shortcut. If the universe were a folded sheet of paper, a wormhole would be the hole punched to connect two distant points. Predicted by Einstein's equations, it could link galaxies or even times, though so far it remains firmly in the realm of physics and imagination. Syzygy sounds like a riddle, but it simply means three celestial bodies lining up perfectly. During an eclipse, for instance, the sun, earth, and moon fall into syzygy. The term comes from Greek, meaning yoked together, and it's used not only in astronomy but sometimes in poetry, whenever rare alignments occur. In 19th century American saloons, a free lunch came with a catch. Customers who bought one drink could help themselves to food, salty meats, cheese, and crackers, designed to make them thirstier. It was a clever business tactic disguised as generosity, and it gave rise to the saying, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." The Peterloo Massacre took place in Manchester, England, in 1819, when soldiers charged into a peaceful crowd of 60,000 demanding voting reform. The attack left hundreds injured and several dead. The name Peterloo was a grim play on Waterloo, mocking the government's brutality toward its own citizens. A supercooled liquid exists in a kind of fragile limbo. It's colder than its freezing point, but still liquid. Purified water can reach below 0 degrees Celsius and remain fluid until disturbed, at which point it freezes instantly. It's like holding time still, watching matter hover on the edge of transformation. In medieval Spain, a fuero was a charter granting special rights to towns or regions. It could allow them to collect taxes, govern locally, or make their own laws apart from the crown. These fueros became a foundation of early self-rule, showing how communities negotiated power long before modern constitutions existed. The Alpine Fault runs like a scar down nearly the entire length of New Zealand's South Island. It's a right lateral strike-slip fault, meaning both sides move horizontally past one another. This massive boundary marks where the Pacific and Indo-Australian tectonic plates grind together, shaping the island's mountains and landscapes over millions of years. Campbell's Law, named after social scientist Donald T. Campbell, warns that when a number becomes a goal, it stops being useful. If schools are judged by test scores alone, people start teaching to the test instead of teaching well. The more pressure a measurement faces, the more it distorts what it's supposed to measure. The Condorcet paradox shows how group choices can be logically inconsistent. Imagine three voters ranking three options differently: A over B, B over C, and C over A. Individually, their rankings make sense, but collectively they loop in a circle. It's a reminder that majority rule doesn't always lead to clear outcomes. Bremsstrahlung, a German word meaning braking radiation, happens when a fast-moving electron is slowed by another charged particle, usually an atomic nucleus. That sudden deceleration releases energy as X-rays. The process powers everything from particle accelerators to medical imaging, turning invisible motion into visible light. The Mandela effect describes when large groups of people remember something that never actually happened. Some recall the Monopoly Man with a monocle, or Mandela dying in prison. Both false memories. Psychologists think it's how shared culture and flawed recall combine, creating a kind of collective misremembering that feels completely real. The Altin Ta Fault is like a giant scar running along the northwestern edge of the Tibetan Plateau. It's what geologists call a left lateral strike-slip fault, meaning if you stood on one side, the ground on the other would appear to slide to your left. This fault stretches for more than 1,000 kilometers and has been slowly grinding away for millions of years, shaping the plateau's incredible height and rugged landscape one slip at a time. In Japanese folklore, the Kasa Obaki is an umbrella with a sense of humor and a soul. After 100 years of faithful service, it supposedly wakes up as a spirit, complete with one eye, one leg, and sometimes a ridiculously long tongue. It hops around, causing harmless mischief. The idea comes from the belief in tsukumogami, ordinary objects that after a century gain a life of their own. The takahe is a chunky, flightless bird dressed in deep blues and greens found only in New Zealand. For decades, it was thought to be extinct, last seen in the late 1800s, until a small population was rediscovered in 1948 in the Murchison Mountains. That moment turned the takahe into a national treasure, a living reminder that nature sometimes gets a second chance. Magenta is a bit of a trick your brain plays on you. It doesn't exist as a wavelength of light. There's no magenta beam coming from the sun. Instead, your brain invents it when red and violet light hit your eyes together, blending the two ends of the visible spectrum into a new imaginary color. It's perception pretending to be physics and doing a pretty convincing job. The lost cosmonaut theory suggests that before Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space in 1961, there were earlier Soviet missions that ended in tragedy, with cosmonauts lost and erased from history. While it's an eerie idea, no credible evidence or declassified Soviet records have ever confirmed it. The theory lingers mostly as a Cold War ghost story, a reflection of how secretive the Soviet space program once was. The Gordian Knot is one of those stories that sticks because it's both simple and brilliant. In ancient Phrygia, there was a knot so tangled that an oracle claimed whoever untied it would rule Asia. Alexander the Great didn't bother fiddling with it. He just sliced it with his sword. Today, the phrase "cutting the Gordian knot" means solving a complex problem with bold simplicity. A hasty generalization is when someone jumps to a conclusion too fast, kind of like tasting one bad apple and declaring the whole tree rotten. It's a classic logical fallacy where a broad statement is made based on limited evidence. You might hear it in everyday arguments or political debates, where one example is treated as proof of a universal rule. Holoportation sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's very real technology. Using advanced 3D capture systems, it creates life-sized holograms of people that can be transmitted anywhere in real time. Imagine talking to someone across the world, and they appear right in front of you, moving, speaking, reacting, naturally. It's teleportation's digital cousin, powered by cameras and algorithms instead of physics. The Solvay conferences were like the ultimate brainpower meetups of the early 20th century. Starting in 1911, they brought together scientists such as Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, and Niels Bohr to debate the biggest mysteries in physics. Ideas born in those rooms, quantum theory, atomic structure, completely reshaped how humanity understood the universe. It was science's version of a rock concert, just with more chalkboards. A league was once a unit of distance, but it never had a fixed length. In medieval times, it was often said to be how far a person could walk in an hour, roughly 3 miles, give or take. Sailors used it at sea, travelers on land, but every country had its own version. So, when old maps mentioned something being 10 leagues away, that was more a suggestion than a promise. The diet of worms wasn't as strange as it sounds. No actual worms were involved. It was an imperial meeting in 1521 in the Holy Roman Empire, where Martin Luther was ordered to retract his writings that challenged the Catholic Church. He refused, famously saying, "Here I stand." That defiance became a turning point in the Protestant Reformation and changed European religion forever. Transhumanism is a philosophical movement with a futuristic edge, the belief that humanity can and should enhance itself using technology. Think beyond glasses or prosthetics, brain-computer interfaces, genetic engineering, or even extending lifespan dramatically. Supporters see it as evolution guided by human hands. Critics, though, worry it might blur the line between human and machine. The Hayward Fault Zone runs quietly beneath California's East Bay, just east of San Francisco. It's a massive geologic fault capable of producing devastating earthquakes. Scientists say it's overdue for a major one. Stretching for about 100 kilometers, it reminds everyone living nearby that the ground under Silicon Valley's tech giants is anything but stable. Hyphae are the thread-like filaments that make up the body of a fungus. Imagine a vast underground web of microscopic tubes, growing, branching, and digesting nutrients. Together, these filaments form the mycelium, the hidden network that supports mushrooms and other fungi. If you've ever seen white threads in soil or rotting wood, that's hyphae quietly at work, recycling the forest floor. Palaic was an ancient language spoken in what's now central Turkey, thousands of years ago. It belonged to the Indo-European family, but only fragments survive. A few hundred words found in ritual texts at the Hittite capital, Hattusa. It's like hearing faint echoes of a civilization that's long gone, preserved only in clay tablets and the careful work of linguists. Hell banknotes are a curious tradition in parts of East Asia. Paper money burned as an offering to ancestors in the afterlife. The bills often feature absurdly large denominations, like billions of dollars, printed with images of celestial banks. Families burn them during ceremonies, symbolically sending wealth and comfort to loved ones beyond the grave. It's a way to keep caring, even across worlds. Oslo, the capital of Norway, blends modern life with deep history. It was founded over 1,000 years ago and still carries traces of its Viking roots. The city is home to the Viking Ship Museum, the Munch Museum, named after the painter of the Scream, and surrounded by forests and fjords that frame it in nature. It's one of those capitals that feels ancient, yet freshly alive. A Dybbuk, in Jewish folklore, is a restless spirit that clings to the living. It's said to be the displaced soul of someone who died with unfinished business, entering a person's body and speaking through them. Tales of exorcisms and haunting come from this belief. The idea captures something deeply human: the fear of not letting go and not being let go of. The endowment effect describes how people value things more simply because they own them. Sell your old t-shirt, and you'll probably price it higher than anyone would pay. It's not greed, it's psychology. Ownership changes perception, making something feel more meaningful just because it's yours. Marketers and auctioneers rely on this quirk of the human brain every day. The fine-tuned universe idea suggests that life exists only because the universe's physical constants, things like gravity, the speed of light, and atomic structure, fall within an incredibly narrow range. Change them even slightly, and stars, planets, or even atoms might not form. It's as if the universe were calibrated with impossible precision, just enough for existence itself. The Lau method, named after physicist Max von Lau, is an X-ray diffraction technique used to study crystals. A fixed crystal is hit with a beam of X-rays, which scatter in distinct patterns captured on photographic film. From those spots, scientists can deduce the atomic structure. It's a bit like shining light through a kaleidoscope and reading its hidden geometry. The doctrine of lapse was a colonial policy used by the British East India Company in India before 1858. If a ruler died without a biological heir, the company annexed their territory. It sounded administrative, but it quietly expanded British control across the subcontinent, one inheritance issue at a time. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy is when someone highlights similarities in data, but ignores the differences, like shooting bullets at a barn and then painting a target around the closest cluster. It's a logical mistake often seen in statistics or conspiracy theories, where patterns appear meaningful only because we chose to see them that way. The doctor's plot was a chilling moment in Soviet history. In 1952, several prominent doctors, many of them Jewish, were accused of conspiring to poison government leaders. The charges were fabricated, fueled by Stalin's paranoia and anti-Semitism. Before the trials concluded, Stalin died, and the case quietly dissolved, but not before spreading deep fear across the country. Oblique strategies are a deck of cards created by musician Brian Eno and artist Peter Schmidt, each inscribed with short cryptic phrases like, "Honor thy error" as a hidden intention. They're meant to jolt artists out of creative ruts by forcing them to think differently. When you're stuck, you draw a card and interpret it however you like. It's less about answers and more about shifting perspective, a gentle push from logic into imagination. A copolymer is a type of polymer made from more than one kind of monomer, meaning its repeating molecular units come from different building blocks. This allows chemists to fine-tune materials for specific uses, like making plastic that's flexible yet strong, or rubber that resists heat. Nylon and ABS plastic are common examples. In short, a copolymer is chemistry's way of mixing ingredients to get the perfect texture. To flatten for you too is a logical fallacy that dodges criticism by accusing the accuser of the same flaw. For example, if someone says smoking is unhealthy and you reply, "But you smoke too," that doesn't refute the point, and it just shifts attention. It's a classic debate deflection, where hypocrisy becomes a distraction from the actual argument. This law, proposed by David P. Reed, states that the value of a large network grows exponentially as it supports group connections, not just individual ones. Think of social media. It's not just about one-on-one friendships, but about communities forming around shared interests. As groups multiply, the network's potential skyrockets, like a web that becomes more powerful the more it entangles. Quintessence, in cosmology, is a theoretical form of dark energy, a dynamic field that could explain why the universe's expansion is accelerating. Unlike the cosmological constant, which is static, quintessence can vary over time and space. The name comes from the ancient idea of a fifth element beyond earth, air, fire, and water. Fitting, since it represents something unseen, yet shaping the cosmos itself. A tokamak is a donut-shaped device designed to confine plasma with magnetic fields in the pursuit of nuclear fusion, the same process that powers the sun. Inside, temperatures soar to millions of degrees as hydrogen atoms are forced together to release immense energy. It's one of humanity's boldest experiments, trying to replicate the stars within a controlled magnetic embrace. Carthage was a powerful Phoenician city-state located on the coast of modern-day Tunisia, founded around the 9th century BCE. It grew into a Mediterranean superpower through trade and naval dominance. Its fierce rivalry with Rome led to the Punic Wars, where figures like Hannibal made history crossing the Alps with elephants. Eventually destroyed by Rome, Carthage's legacy still echoes in every tale of empire and ambition. A fractal is a mathematical pattern that repeats itself endlessly, no matter how much you zoom in or out. Nature loves fractals. You see them in snowflakes, coastlines, and the branching of trees. Unlike simple geometric shapes, fractals have infinite detail and self-similarity across scales. They blur the line between math and art, revealing order inside what first looks like chaos. The Russo-Japanese War, fought between 1904 and 1905, was a brutal conflict over control of Manchuria and Korea. Japan's victory stunned the world. It was the first time an Asian nation defeated a major European power in modern warfare. The war signaled Japan's rise as a global power and exposed cracks within the Russian Empire, foreshadowing revolution just years later. And there you have it. A handful of facts you didn't exactly need but now can't unknow. From cosmic mysteries to creative chaos, we've officially filled your brain's "Why do I know this?" folder. If you made it this far, you're either very curious or just beautifully bored. Either way, thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay weird, and I'll catch you in the next one. There are things that surprise even me. There's a bunch of amazing facts out there you weren't aware of. Let me tell you some of them. I'm the useless guy, and here I am, with amazing facts you didn't know.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The useless show.
The ancient city of Persepolis, once the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, wasn't just built for grandeur. It was engineered for survival. Its architects designed an intricate drainage system carved directly into the stone foundations to manage heavy rains. Imagine a city from over 2,000 years ago with plumbing smart enough to prevent floods during Persian downpours. The Kessler syndrome describes a frightening chain reaction in space. When too much debris orbits Earth, one collision between satellites can trigger countless others, creating even more junk. It's like a cosmic domino effect, except instead of tiles falling, it's metal fragments zipping around the planet at thousands of kilometers per hour. The missing fundamental is a strange trick of the brain. When you hear a sound missing its lowest tone, your mind still fills in the missing bass note. For instance, even if a speaker can't play the deepest frequencies of a cello, your brain reconstructs them automatically, giving the illusion of a full, rich sound. Liouville's theorem, a cornerstone of classical mechanics, explains that the total density of possible system states stays constant as the system evolves. In simpler terms, as particles move and energy shifts, the spread of their possible configurations remains unchanged, like shuffling cards without adding or removing any from the deck. Around 5,330,000 years ago, the Zanclean flood refilled the Mediterranean Sea in one of Earth's most dramatic events. When Atlantic waters broke through the Strait of Gibraltar, they poured in so fast that the basin, once a dry desert, filled in mere months. It was like opening a dam to flood an entire continent. Sesklo, a small village near Volos in Thessaly, Greece, hides an ancient secret. It's one of Europe's oldest known Neolithic settlements. Archaeologists found houses, pottery, and even early evidence of organized farming there, dating back more than 7,000 years, making it a quiet countryside spot with a surprisingly deep human past. The Larmor formula helps physicists calculate how much power a charged particle radiates when it accelerates. Picture an electron speeding up. It emits electromagnetic waves, and the Larmor formula tells you exactly how much energy it loses doing that. It's the math behind why antennas and X-ray machines can send out radiation. The no-hair theorem sounds funny, but it's serious astrophysics. It says that all black holes, no matter how they form, can be completely described, using only 3 traits: mass, electric charge, and spin. It's as if every black hole wears the same uniform, no personality, just those 3 defining numbers. The not invented here syndrome is a curious bias found in companies and institutions that refuse to use outside ideas. Instead of adopting already proven solutions, they reinvent the wheel just to keep it in-house. It's like ignoring a perfectly good umbrella because it wasn't your idea to make one. The shade of blue on the United Nations flag, Pantone 2925C, wasn't chosen at random. Designers picked it because it was the color least likely to appear on any national flag. In a world full of divided colors and borders, that soft sky blue became a rare neutral ground for peace and diplomacy. The Malleus Maleficarum, written in the late 15th century, became the infamous manual for witch hunters across Europe. It combined superstition with legal procedure, instructing how to identify, interrogate, and punish alleged witches. Its name means hammer of witches, and sadly, it was used quite literally during the Inquisition. Loss aversion describes how we hate losing more than we enjoy gaining. Psychologists found that losing $10 feels worse than winning 10 feels good. It's why people cling to old stocks, bad bets, or even relationships. Our brains are wired to avoid loss more than chase reward. An intermetallic compound forms when 2 or more metals combine into an ordered structure rather than a random alloy. Unlike typical mixtures, their atoms arrange neatly, creating materials that are often stronger and more heat-resistant. Jet engines, for instance, rely on intermetallics for their blades to survive extreme conditions. The Battle of Karansibis in 1788 might be history's most embarrassing military blunder. During the Austrian campaign against the Ottomans, drunken confusion led soldiers to mistake their own men for the enemy. They ended up firing on each other all night, suffering heavy losses, without a single Ottoman in sight. The Poynting-Robertson effect describes how sunlight slowly drags dust particles toward the sun. As the grains absorb and re-emit solar radiation, they lose angular momentum, spiraling inward. It's like cosmic quicksand, tiny flecks of space dust doomed to fall into the star that first illuminated them. The spotlight effect is that awkward feeling that everyone's watching you when in reality, they aren't. Psychologists showed that people overestimate how noticeable their mistakes or outfits are. It's comforting, really. Most of the time, others are too busy thinking about themselves to notice your mismatched socks. In formal logic, the principle of explosion says that once a contradiction exists, any statement can be proven true from it. It's like saying, if I can prove that 1 plus 1 equals 3, then I can also prove that cats are vegetables. That's why consistency is sacred in logical systems. The Casimir effect reveals the strange forces hidden in empty space. When two uncharged metal plates are placed extremely close, quantum fluctuations push them together. Even in a vacuum, invisible waves of energy ripple everywhere, showing that nothingness in quantum physics is far from empty. The Reinheitsgebot, or German beer purity law of 1516, allowed beer to be brewed only from water, barley, and hops. It was meant to protect drinkers from unsafe additives and keep prices fair. Centuries later, many German brewers still honor it, turning simplicity into a mark of quality. The Babington Plot of 1586 was a failed plan to assassinate Queen Elizabeth I and crown Mary Queen of Scots. The plot was uncovered through intercepted letters, sealing Mary's tragic fate. Her execution ended any hope of restoring Catholic rule in Protestant England. The genetic fallacy is a type of flawed reasoning where someone judges an idea based on its origin rather than its truth. It's like dismissing a brilliant theory just because it came from someone unpopular. Reactance is the stubborn feeling that kicks in when someone tells us what we can't do. Psychologists say it's why rules often spark rebellion. Humans crave freedom of choice. Tweefelfontein, in Namibia's Kunene region, holds thousands of ancient rock engravings made by hunter-gatherers thousands of years ago. The carvings depict animals, footprints, and rituals, offering a glimpse into early human imagination. The Feynman point sits deep within pi, 6 nines in a row starting at the 762nd decimal place. Named after physicist Richard Feynman, who joked he wanted to memorize pi up to that point, it's a quirky mathematical coincidence buried in one of nature's most famous numbers. The Purkinje effect describes how our eyes shift their color sensitivity in dim light. When brightness fades, we become more sensitive to blues than reds. That's why a red rose seems to darken at dusk while blue flowers still appear bright. It's the eye's way of switching from daytime to nighttime vision. A quadrant is a simple but brilliant instrument used to measure angles up to 90 degrees. Shaped like a quarter of a circle, it was once essential for navigation and astronomy. Sailors used it to measure a star's height above the horizon and find their latitude long before GPS existed. A stela is a tall stone or wooden slab, usually carved with inscriptions or images, erected in ancient times as a monument. Civilizations from Egypt to Maya used them to record victories, laws, or memorials. Think of it as an ancient billboard, only carved by hand and meant to last millennia. The Treaty of Tordesillas, signed in 1494, divided the newly discovered lands outside Europe between Spain and Portugal. A line was drawn roughly 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands. Spain took lands to the west, Portugal to the east, an agreement that shaped the languages of South America to this day. Constantinople was one of history's most legendary capitals, serving the Roman, Byzantine, and later Ottoman empires. Founded by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, it sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. Its walls, domes, and trade routes made it the beating heart of the medieval world. The actor-observer asymmetry is a classic finding in social psychology. It's our tendency to blame our own mistakes on circumstances but others' mistakes on their character. If you slip, it's because the floor was wet. If someone else slips, well, they should have been more careful. It's bias hidden in everyday judgment. Argyria is a rare medical condition where the skin turns a bluish gray due to silver buildup in the body. It happens after long-term exposure to silver-based medicines or supplements. The change is permanent, and though harmless, it leaves the skin shimmering like metal under sunlight. The end Permian extinction, about 252 million years ago, was Earth's worst mass extinction. Scientists estimate it wiped out 96% of marine life and 70% of land species. Volcanoes, greenhouse gases, and ocean acidification combined to nearly reset life on the planet. Confirmation bias is our mental habit of favoring information that supports what we already believe. Instead of seeing facts objectively, we filter them through personal opinions. It's why people reading the same news story can walk away with entirely different conclusions, each convinced they're right. Superconductivity is a remarkable state of matter where electrical resistance completely disappears. When certain materials are cooled near absolute zero, electrons move effortlessly, wasting no energy as heat. It's what makes magnetic levitation trains possible and gives scientists hope for ultra-efficient power systems in the future. The War of the Bucket in 1325 sounds absurd because it was. Rival Italian city-states Bologna and Modena fought after Modenese soldiers allegedly stole a wooden bucket from a Bolognese well. Thousands died over it, and the bucket still hangs in Modena as a trophy of misplaced pride. The Morgan-Keenan system is the standard method astronomers use to classify stars. It organizes them by temperature and spectral type, O, B, A, F, G, K, M, ranging from the hottest blue stars to the coolest red ones. Our sun sits right in the middle, a modest G-type star among billions. The Zollschiene, formed in 1834, was a customs union that united various German states under one economic policy. It removed internal tariffs and standardized trade, paving the way for political unity decades later. The Battle of Austerlitz, fought in 1805, is often called Napoleon's greatest victory. Known as the Battle of the Three Emperors, it saw Napoleon outmaneuver the combined Russian and Austrian armies. His strategic deception turned a risky situation into a textbook display of military genius. The Salish Sea is a vast network of coastal waterways in the Pacific Northwest, including Puget Sound and the Strait of Georgia. It's named after the Coast Salish peoples who've lived there for thousands of years. Today, it's a region where rich ecosystems and indigenous heritage meet the modern world. An ideophone is a word that vividly imitates a sound, feeling, or movement. Languages like Japanese use them extensively. Dokidoki for a racing heartbeat, or kira kira for something that sparkles. It's language's way of painting sensations directly into sound. The Maaslandkering in the Netherlands is one of the largest moving structures on Earth. It's a storm surge barrier with two massive floating gates. Each gate is about 210 meters long that swing shut during floods. Designed to protect Rotterdam, it's an engineering marvel that guards a nation below sea level. An astrolabe is an ancient handheld model of the universe used by astronomers and navigators. By aligning its rotating disks with stars or the sun, one could tell the time, locate planets, or find direction. It was the smartphone of the medieval world, compact, complex, and full of cosmic data. Jacobson's functions of language describe 6 roles communication can serve: referential, emotive, conative, phatic, metalingual, and poetic. In simple terms, they explain how language can inform, express emotion, persuade, connect, explain itself, or create beauty. It's a full map of what words are capable of doing. Brandolini's law, humorously known as the bullshit asymmetry principle, says it takes 10 times more effort to refute nonsense than to create it. Online debates prove it daily. A false claim can spread in seconds, while carefully debunking it might take hours. It's an exhausting imbalance of modern information. Quantum chromodynamics, or QCD, is the theory that explains how quarks and gluons interact to form protons, neutrons, and other particles. It's the science of the strong nuclear force, one of the universe's 4 fundamental forces. Without it, atoms and everything made of them would simply fly apart. In royal courts, the position of taster was both prestigious and perilous. Their duty was to sample the monarch's food to check for poison. Survival meant trust and favor. One bad bite meant the end. It was loyalty tested through every meal. The Lorentz transformation is a set of equations that connects 2 observers moving at constant speeds relative to each other. It's central to Einstein's theory of relativity, explaining how time and space stretch or contract depending on motion. In essence, it's the math behind how the universe keeps its cosmic balance. The conjunction fallacy occurs when people assume that two specific things happening together are more likely than one general event. For example, thinking Linda is a feminist bank teller is more probable than Linda is a bank teller. It's a mental shortcut that breaks probability's most basic rule. Nineveh, once the capital of the Assyrian Empire, stood near modern-day Mosul in northern Iraq. It was one of the world's earliest great cities, filled with palaces, libraries, and colossal statues. At its height, it dazzled travelers. Centuries later, its ruins still whisper stories of an empire lost to time. The Pazzi conspiracy of 1478 was a failed attempt to overthrow the Medici family, rulers of Renaissance Florence. Members of the Pazzi family and their allies plotted to assassinate Lorenzo and Giuliano de' Medici during Mass in Florence's cathedral. Giuliano was killed, but Lorenzo survived, and the brutal retaliation cemented Medici control for decades. A virtual particle is a fleeting quantum fluctuation that momentarily acts like a real particle before vanishing. It exists only within the limits of the uncertainty principle, appearing and disappearing too quickly to be directly observed. These ghostly particles help explain forces like electromagnetism, quietly shaping the universe's invisible framework. Embezzlement is a legal term for when someone entrusted with assets secretly diverts them for personal use. Unlike theft, the person already has lawful access, like a treasurer pocketing funds they were meant to safeguard. It's a betrayal of trust wrapped in financial paperwork. The cocktail party effect describes the brain's uncanny ability to focus on one voice among many. In a noisy room, you can still pick out your name or a familiar tone from across the crowd. It's your brain acting like a personal audio filter, tuning chaos into clarity. A baryon is a type of subatomic particle made up of an odd number of quarks, usually 3. Protons and neutrons, the building blocks of atoms, are baryons. Held together by the strong nuclear force, they're tiny clusters of energy that form nearly all visible matter in the universe. Alepotripa Cave, on Greece's Mani Peninsula, is an archaeological treasure where Neolithic people lived, traded, and buried their dead. The cave, sealed for thousands of years after a collapse, preserved pottery, tools, and human remains. It's often called a prehistoric time capsule of early European life. A relativistic jet is a narrow stream of plasma ejected from the center of a galaxy at speeds near light. Powered by black holes or neutron stars, these jets can stretch across thousands of light years. They're like cosmic blowtorches, visible across the universe despite their distant origins. Cultivation theory explores how long-term television exposure subtly shapes viewers' perceptions of reality. Proposed by George Gerbner, it suggests that heavy TV watchers may come to believe the world mirrors what they see on screen, more dangerous, glamorous, or dramatic than it really is. A pilcrow written as pilcrow is the elegant little mark that denotes a new paragraph. Its name comes from the Latin paragraphus, meaning chapter. Medieval scribes used it to separate ideas in long texts, and though it's rare today, it still appears in editing and word processing tools. A 46-degree halo is one of the sky's rarest optical illusions, a massive ring of light encircling the sun, twice as large as the common 22-degree halo. It forms when sunlight refracts through hexagonal ice crystals high in the atmosphere, turning the sky into a glowing circular prism. The trolley problem is a moral thought experiment, where you must choose whether to sacrifice one person to save several others. First posed in the 1960s, it challenges how we weigh logic against empathy. Philosophers and psychologists still use it to study ethics and our discomfort with playing God. The Laffer curve in economics illustrates the balance between tax rates and government revenue. It suggests that if taxes are too high, people work and invest less, reducing total income. In theory, there's an ideal rate where revenue peaks. Beyond that, taxing more actually earns less. Mixed martial arts, or MMA, is a full-contact combat sport blending techniques from boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and more. Fighters can strike or grapple both standing and on the ground. It's a modern evolution of ancient combat traditions, equal parts strategy, endurance, and raw adaptability. The Apollo 11 cave in Namibia contains some of the oldest known figurative art in Africa. Archaeologists discovered slabs painted with animal figures, estimated to be 25,000 years old. The site offers a glimpse into early human creativity, art born from stone and imagination. The Great Cipher, created by Antoine Rossignol for King Louis XIV, was so intricate it resisted decoding for over 2 centuries. It replaced letters with complex syllabic symbols, baffling cryptographers until the 1890s. For its time, it was an unbreakable fortress of words. Normalcy bias is the mental trap that makes people underestimate danger during crises. Faced with disasters, many assume everything will stay normal, delaying their reaction. It's why some people ignore evacuation orders until it's too late. Our brains struggle to accept sudden change. Ferrofluid is a liquid infused with tiny magnetic particles that respond dramatically to magnetic fields. When exposed, it forms sharp, spiky patterns that seem almost alive. Originally developed by NASA, it's both a scientific tool and a mesmerizing example of magnetism made visible. During the Dutch tulip mania of the 1630s, tulip bulbs became the hottest investment in Europe. At the peak of the craze, a single rare bulb could sell for more than 10 times a skilled craftsman's yearly income. When prices collapsed, fortunes withered faster than the flowers themselves. The charis is a wavy, asymmetrical dagger from Indonesia. Famed for both artistry and legend, many are believed to hold spiritual power, and some blades were even forged from meteorite iron. Beyond its use as a weapon, it's a symbol of heritage, identity, and mysticism. The Tsiolkovsky rocket equation, formulated in the early 20th century, explains how a rocket's velocity changes as it burns fuel. It connects mass, exhaust speed, and momentum, a simple formula that makes spaceflight possible. Every launch, from satellites to Mars missions, still follows its math. Starlight was a mysterious material invented by British amateur chemist Maurice Ward. It could reportedly withstand extreme heat, even direct blowtorches, without burning. Ward kept its formula secret, and after his death, the recipe was lost, leaving behind a modern alchemist's unsolved riddle. The rule against perpetuities is a complex legal doctrine that limits how far into the future property rights can be controlled. It prevents someone from dictating ownership centuries ahead. In short, it stops the dead from ruling the living through eternal wills and trusts. The Imbert-Fedorov effect is an optical phenomenon where polarized light shifts slightly sideways when totally internally reflected. Though the displacement is tiny, measured in nanometers, it reveals how light's polarization interacts subtly with surfaces, reminding physicists that even reflections aren't perfectly simple. The diamond cubic structure is a repeating atomic arrangement found in materials like silicon and diamond. Each atom bonds to 4 others in a precise tetrahedral pattern. This geometry gives diamonds their unmatched hardness and makes silicon ideal for electronics, a pattern where beauty meets utility. The grandfather paradox is one of the most mind-bending ideas in time travel. Imagine going back in time and accidentally preventing your own grandfather from meeting your grandmother. If that happened, you'd never be born. But if you were never born, how could you go back in time in the first place? It's a loop that logic can't quite untangle. Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, is one of Europe's oldest cities, with roots reaching back to the 5th century BC. Once a Thracian settlement, it later became a Roman hub called Serdica. Today, the city's streets rest atop layers of ancient ruins, where subway stations stand beside Roman walls, showing how the past and present literally coexist beneath people's feet. The Novikov self-consistency principle, proposed by Russian physicist Igor Dmitrievich Novikov in the 1980s, tries to solve time travel paradoxes. It suggests that if time travel were possible, the timeline would always self-correct. In other words, even if you went back and tried to change something, events would still unfold in a way that preserves history's consistency. A vampire number isn't a creature of the night, it's a mathematical oddity. It's a number that can be split into 2 smaller numbers, and those 2 contain exactly the same digits as the original. It's like math's way of hiding little numerical puzzles in plain sight. The cosmic microwave background is the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, still humming quietly across the universe. It's the oldest light we can detect, radiation left over from a time when the universe was just 380,000 years old. Scientists use it as a cosmic photograph, revealing how the first galaxies and stars began to form. Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, sits on the Danube River, right where Slovakia meets Austria and Hungary. It's one of the few capitals in the world that borders 2 other countries. The city's history stretches back to ancient times, with medieval castles, Baroque palaces, and a skyline where the past seems to blend effortlessly with modern life. Heavy fermion materials are a curious class of metallic compounds that include elements with F electrons, like uranium or cerium. These electrons act unusually heavy, making the material behave as if its particles carry hundreds of times more mass than normal. This strange behavior has fascinated physicists for decades, especially for its link to superconductivity. The Rum Rebellion of 1808 was Australia's only successful military coup. The New South Wales Corps, frustrated with Governor William Bligh's restrictions on their rum trade, overthrew him in a dramatic power grab. Bodybuilding is more than just lifting weights. It's the art and science of shaping the human body through resistance training, nutrition, and discipline. Using progressive overload, athletes gradually increase intensity to develop defined, balanced muscles. It's like sculpting with biology instead of marble, where the body itself becomes the masterpiece. Grimm's Law explains how ancient sounds and languages shifted over time. In Proto-Germanic, certain consonants changed systematically from their Proto-Indo-European roots. For instance, P became F, turning Latin pater into English father. It's like language evolution leaving a trail of sound footprints for linguists to follow back through history. The golem effect is a psychological trap where low expectations lead to lower performance. If a teacher or boss subtly expects less from someone, that person often performs worse, not because of ability, but because belief shapes behavior. Memphis was the ancient capital of Eneb-Hetch, the first nome of Lower Egypt, located near today's Cairo. Founded around 3000 BC, it served as Egypt's political and religious center for centuries. Its ruins include temples to Ptah, the god of craftsmen, showing how civilization first began to shape stone into power and faith. The North Anatolian Fault stretches across northern Turkey, marking the boundary between the Eurasian and Anatolian plates. It's a massive strike-slip fault, similar to California's San Andreas. Over the centuries, it's been responsible for devastating earthquakes, reminding geologists how Earth's crust moves in quiet tension until it suddenly doesn't. The Pragmatic Sanction of 1713 was a decree issued by Emperor Charles VI to ensure his daughter, Maria Theresa, could inherit the Habsburg throne. It challenged the idea that only men could rule, setting the stage for one of Europe's most powerful female monarchs, and for wars that tested her right to reign. The Clausius-Clapeyron relation describes how temperature and pressure interact during a phase change. Like when water boils or ice melts, it gives scientists a way to predict how matter behaves as it moves between solid, liquid, and gas. In a sense, it's the physics behind why your kettle whistles or why clouds form in the sky. High-temperature superconductivity is when certain materials conduct electricity without resistance, but at temperatures much warmer than traditional superconductors. Instead of near absolute zero, they work above the boiling point of liquid nitrogen, about minus 196 degrees Celsius. That's still freezing, but in physics, it's practically tropical. Wave-particle duality is the strange rule in quantum mechanics that says everything, even light and electrons, behaves as both a wave and a particle. Shine light through two slits, and it creates a wave pattern. Measure it closely, and it acts like a stream of particles. It's physics' way of reminding us reality isn't always either-or. The friendship paradox sounds impossible, but holds true mathematically. On average, your friends have more friends than you do. It happens because social networks naturally cluster around popular people. Those with more connections skew the average. It's a bit humbling, but also a quirky look at how math hides inside human relationships. The Marburg Files were secret German Foreign Ministry documents found in 1945. They revealed correspondence suggesting that the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII, may have sympathized with Nazi Germany. The discovery caused a diplomatic scandal, casting a long shadow over one of Britain's most controversial royals. Agenda-setting theory explains how the media doesn't tell people what to think, but rather what to think about. By choosing which stories to highlight, news outlets shape public priorities, whether that's politics, disasters, or celebrity scandals. It's a subtle but powerful way that attention itself becomes influence. The Battle of Marathon, fought in 490 BC, was a pivotal clash between Athens and Persia. Despite being outnumbered, the Athenians triumphed, halting the Persian invasion. Legend says a messenger ran all the way from Marathon to Athens, about 26 miles, to announce victory, inspiring the modern marathon race. The Ashango bone is a dark, polished fibula of a baboon, carved with mysterious notches found in Central Africa near the headwaters of the Nile. Dating back over 20,000 years, it's thought to be an ancient mathematical tool, possibly humanity's first attempt at arithmetic long before written numbers existed. The W and Z bosons are heavy, short-lived particles that carry the weak nuclear force, the one responsible for beta decay. Discovered in 1983 at CERN, their detection confirmed a major part of the Standard Model. Without them, stars wouldn't fuse elements, and life as we know it simply couldn't exist. A kaon is a type of meson, a particle made of a quark and an antiquark, with a special quantum property called strangeness. First discovered in cosmic rays, kaons helped physicists uncover deeper laws of symmetry in the universe. They might be tiny, but their behavior changed how we understand matter itself. The halting problem is one of computer science's great impossibilities. It proves that no universal algorithm can predict whether any given program will eventually stop running or loop forever. It's like trying to write a rulebook that predicts every possible chess game. The sheer complexity of possibilities makes it fundamentally unsolvable. Godwin's law, coined by Mike Godwin in 1990, is a humorous rule of the internet. It says that as an online discussion drags on, the chance that someone compares something to Nazis or Hitler eventually reaches 100%. It's both a joke and a warning about how heated debates often spiral into absurd extremes. The ghost forests along the Pacific Northwest coast are haunting reminders of nature's power. These stands of dead cedar trees were killed when a massive earthquake in the 1700s dropped the coastline, flooding the roots with seawater. Their skeletal remains still rise from tidal flats, silent witnesses to the day the earth shifted. Vitrification is a key process in cryopreservation, where biological samples are cooled so rapidly that water doesn't form ice crystals. Instead, it solidifies into a glass-like state, protecting delicate cells and tissues from damage. It's the difference between shattering ice and preserving perfect stillness, a frozen pause button for biology. The empathy gap describes how people underestimate the power of emotions and impulses, both in themselves and others. For example, someone calm might think they'd never act rashly when angry, until they actually are. It's a reminder that understanding behavior requires more than logic. It needs a bit of emotional hindsight. Maxwell's equations are the elegant mathematical backbone of electromagnetism. These four equations tie together electricity, magnetism, and light, explaining how they move and interact. Written in the 1800s by James Clerk Maxwell, they form the foundation for technologies from radio waves to electric circuits, basically the invisible structure behind modern life. A conceptual metaphor is when one idea helps us understand another, like saying, time is money, or arguments are battles. It's not just a figure of speech, it's how the brain organizes thought. By mapping abstract ideas onto familiar experiences, metaphors quietly shape how people reason and communicate every day. The Vic-Fezenzak G-sharp is an enormous bronze bell in France, remarkable for being tuned to a precise quarter tone, a pitch between standard musical notes. Crafted with rare precision, it produces a haunting resonance that doesn't fit neatly into Western scales. Quantum decoherence is the process that turns the weirdness of quantum physics into the predictability of everyday reality. When quantum systems interact with their surroundings, their delicate superpositions collapse, making them behave classically. It's why you never see a cat that's both alive and dead outside of Schrödinger's imagination. Kasem Cave, near Rosh Hayyan in Israel, is a remarkable Paleolithic archaeological site dating back about 400,000 years. Excavations there have uncovered human teeth, tools, and animal bones, showing early evidence of fire use and organized hunting. It offers a rare glimpse into the lives of some of our distant ancestors. Hawking radiation is a phenomenon predicted by Stephen Hawking in 1974. It suggests that black holes aren't entirely black. They slowly emit faint radiation due to quantum effects at their edges. Over immense timescales, this radiation could cause black holes to evaporate, making them less eternal than once believed. Sayre's law humorously observes that in any argument, the amount of passion people show is inversely related to how important the issue actually is. In other words, committees often fight hardest over the smallest details, like office furniture, while ignoring bigger decisions. It's bureaucracy's version of misplaced enthusiasm. Dunbar's number proposes that humans can maintain stable social relationships with roughly 150 people. The idea, suggested by anthropologist Robin Dunbar, links brain size to social capacity. Beyond that number, emotional connections start to blur. It's why, even in the digital age, meaningful friendships still have limits. The Clathrate gun hypothesis proposes that climate warming could trigger the sudden release of methane trapped in undersea ice-like structures called clathrates. This burst of greenhouse gas could drastically accelerate warming, creating a feedback loop. It's a chilling scenario, both literally and figuratively, rooted in Earth's deep carbon cycles. In quantum computing, a magic state is a rare and complex qubit configuration that allows truly universal computation. While most quantum gates can be simulated easily, magic states unlock the full power of quantum processing. They're the secret ingredient that turns experimental physics into actual quantum logic. The Unruh effect predicts that an observer accelerating through space would feel a warm glow of radiation, while someone standing still would detect none. It's a strange result of quantum field theory, suggesting that reality itself depends on how fast you're moving. For physics, it's as if acceleration changes what empty means. The Coude focus is an optical setup in large telescopes that redirects incoming light through a series of mirrors to a fixed point. This design lets astronomers attach heavy instruments, like spectrographs, without disturbing the telescope's movement. It's the celestial equivalent of having a camera on a tripod while the sky spins. The observer effect in physics notes that simply measuring something changes it. For example, checking an electron's position alters its motion. It's not mystical. It's the unavoidable influence of observation on a delicate system. In quantum mechanics, even curiosity has consequences. The Spanish Armada was a massive fleet of 130 ships launched by Spain in 1588 to invade England. Commanded by the Duke of Medina Sidonia, it was ultimately defeated by English naval tactics and harsh weather. The failure marked a turning point in Europe's balance of naval power. The Bobo doll experiment, led by psychologist Albert Bandura in the 1960s, tested how children learn by imitation. After watching adults behave aggressively toward an inflatable clown doll, many children copied the same actions. It became a landmark study in social learning theory, showing how behavior can spread simply by example. The Compton effect happens when a high-energy photon, like an X-ray, smashes into an electron and knocks it loose from an atom's outer shell. It's a bit like a cue ball hitting another on a pool table. Momentum and energy are transferred. Discovered by Arthur Compton in 1923, this experiment confirmed that light can behave not just as a wave, but also as a particle. A sponson on a flying boat or amphibious aircraft is a small projection on the hull that helps it stay steady on water. Think of it as the plane's version of training wheels or an outrigger on a canoe. Without it, the aircraft could easily tip or roll while floating, especially during takeoff or landing on uneven waves. The self-serving bias is our mind's sneaky way of protecting our ego. It's when we credit ourselves for successes, but blame external factors for failures. For example, acing a test means I'm smart, but failing it means the teacher was unfair. This bias helps maintain self-esteem, but it can also make honest self-reflection a little harder. The Diomede Islands sit in the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska, separated by just 4 kilometers of icy water, but nearly a full day in time. The international dateline runs between them, making Little Diomede in the US 21 hours behind Big Diomede in Russia. It's one of the few places on Earth where you can quite literally see tomorrow across the sea. Idempotence in computer science is when doing the same operation multiple times gives the same result as doing it once. For example, pressing a button to set your profile picture to the same image again doesn't change anything. It stays identical. This property is crucial in web systems and APIs to prevent repeated actions from causing unwanted side effects. The Hertzsprung-Russell diagram is a chart astronomers use to map stars by brightness and temperature. Picture a cosmic scatterplot. Blue stars blazing hot on one side, cool red giants glowing softly on the other. Developed in the early 1900s, it revealed how stars evolve, from newborn main sequence stars to fading white dwarfs. The zodiac is a narrow belt in the sky about 8 degrees north and south of the sun's path, the ecliptic. It's home to 12 constellations like Leo and Aquarius that ancient astrologers linked to human traits. Astronomically, it's simply where the sun, moon, and planets appear to travel. Our solar system's celestial highway. The Birch-Murnaghan equation of state describes how a material's volume changes under pressure. It's like understanding how a rubber ball compresses when squeezed, but applied to the Earth's interior or metals under extreme conditions. Scientists use it to model planetary cores or materials tested at thousands of atmospheres of pressure. The spiral of silence theory suggests that people stay quiet about their opinions when they think they're in the minority. It's a kind of social self-censorship. No one wants to be the odd one out. Coined by Elizabeth Noel Neumann in the 1970s, it explains why public debates often sound more one-sided than they really are. The two-step flow of communication theory says mass media doesn't directly shape most people's opinions. Instead, it influences opinion leaders, who then influence others. Think of it like a chain. The news impacts influencers first, and they pass the ideas on. It's an early insight into how social media dynamics work today. The Collier brothers, Langley and Homer, became infamous hoarders in 1947 when police discovered their Manhattan home stuffed floor to ceiling with junk. Over 100 tons of newspapers, furniture, and even a Model T car were piled inside. The brothers' deaths turned their cluttered brownstone into a symbol of obsession and isolation. An ontological paradox is a time travel loop where something exists without ever being created. Imagine giving your past self a book you got from your future self. Where did it originate? It's a favorite concept in science fiction because it challenges the very idea of cause and effect. The medieval guild system was like an early version of trade unions. Artisans and merchants formed guilds to control quality, prices, and training in their crafts. A blacksmith's guild, for instance, would decide who could work, what could be sold, and even how apprentices were trained, keeping skills and standards tightly guarded. Delphi was an ancient Greek sanctuary on Mount Parnassus, home to the Oracle of Apollo. Pilgrims traveled from across the Mediterranean to hear the priestess, called the Pythia, deliver cryptic prophecies. Kings and generals often consulted her before wars or major decisions, believing her words carried the voice of the god himself. A Mobius strip looks like an ordinary paper loop until you twist it once and tape the ends together. The result is a shape with only one side and one edge. If you trace a line down its surface, you'll end up where you started, without ever crossing an edge. It's geometry's simplest mindbender. The representativeness heuristic is our brain's shortcut for judging probabilities based on resemblance. For instance, if someone loves reading and wears glasses, we might guess they're a librarian rather than a salesperson, even if salespeople are far more common. It's quick, but often misleading because it ignores actual statistical likelihoods. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, was one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the American Civil War. It marked the Confederacy's failed attempt to invade the North. With over 50,000 casualties, it became the war's turning point and set the stage for Abraham Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address. A color index in astronomy is a number that tells how hot or cool a star is based on its color. Bluer stars have lower or bluer indices and burn hotter, while redder ones are cooler. It's like a cosmic thermometer, helping astronomers understand a star's temperature and age at a glance. A chiral molecule is one that can't be superimposed on its mirror image, like left and right hands. Many biological molecules, including amino acids and sugars, are chiral, and life itself depends on this asymmetry. Even though two versions might look identical, their chemical behavior can differ dramatically, especially in medicine. The Tyndall effect happens when light scatters off tiny particles in a mixture, making a beam visible. It's why headlights seem to cut through fog, or why a glass of milk looks opaque. Named after physicist John Tyndall, this effect helps distinguish true solutions from colloids in chemistry. A false dilemma is a logical fallacy that forces a choice between two options when others exist. It's like saying, you're either with me or against me. In reality, most situations have a spectrum of possibilities, but this simplification often makes arguments seem clearer or more dramatic than they really are. The bicameral mind is a psychological hypothesis by Julian Jaynes. suggesting that early humans once experienced consciousness as a dialogue between two brain halves, one speaking and the other obeying. He believed this internal voice evolved into what we now call self-awareness. It's a bold idea that blurs the line between history and psychology. Rosy retrospection is our brain's tendency to remember the past as being better than it really was. It's why childhood summers seem endless or old jobs feel easier in hindsight. Psychologists say our memories fade unevenly. We often keep the good and lose the stress. It's nostalgia's quiet trick, polishing the past until it shines. The Ems dispatch was a short telegram that Otto von Bismarck cleverly edited in 1870 to sound insulting to the French. The altered message enraged France, leading it to declare the Franco-Prussian War. Bismarck's political move wasn't just sly editing. It reshaped European history and set the stage for the unification of Germany. The Pantheon in Rome is a masterpiece of ancient architecture, originally built as a temple to all Roman gods, reconstructed under Emperor Hadrian around 125 CE. It's famous for its massive concrete dome with a central oculus that lets in sunlight. Nearly 2,000 years later, it still holds the world's largest unreinforced dome. The superb lyrebird of Australia is nature's ultimate sound mimic. This bird can imitate everything from chainsaws to camera shutters with uncanny accuracy. Its elaborate tail feathers form a lyre shape when it displays, and its complex vocal organ allows it to reproduce an entire forest soundtrack, sometimes fooling even the animals it mimics. The Diepkloof rock shelter in South Africa's Western Cape holds evidence of early human creativity. Archaeologists found engraved ostrich eggshell fragments there, believed to be ancient water containers marked with symbolic designs. These artifacts, dating back over 60,000 years, show that symbolic thinking emerged long before written language or civilization. The Coriolis effect is what makes storms spin differently in each hemisphere. It occurs because Earth rotates, causing moving air or water to curve relative to the surface. That's why hurricanes twist counterclockwise in the north and clockwise in the south. It's not a force itself, just a quirk of motion on a spinning planet. The Gibbs-Helmholtz equation connects temperature with energy changes in chemical reactions. In thermodynamics, it helps predict whether a reaction will happen spontaneously as conditions change. For example, it shows why ice melts faster in warm weather. The energy balance shifts. It's a simple-looking equation that quietly governs much of physical chemistry. The ceremonial mace in the United Kingdom's House of Commons isn't just decoration. It represents royal authority. When the mace is placed on the table, Parliament can legally debate and pass laws. If it's removed, proceedings must stop. It's a centuries-old symbol showing that even democracy still nods to monarchy. The Berglaw effect is a legendary card trick in magic circles. A spectator names any card and any number, and the magician counts down the deck, only to find that exact card in that exact spot. What makes it remarkable is that the deck can appear untouched. Its method remains one of the best-kept secrets in magic history. Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, holds the title of the world's northernmost capital city. Founded in the 9th century by Norse settlers, its name means Smoky Bay, inspired by the area's geothermal steam. Today, it blends ancient Viking roots with modern design, all under skies that switch between endless daylight and winter darkness. Inertial confinement fusion aims to recreate the sun's power on Earth by compressing a tiny fuel pellet with lasers or ion beams. Inside, deuterium and tritium fuse to release energy. It's like squeezing a star into a pinhead. Though still experimental, breakthroughs could someday make fusion a limitless clean energy source. The Large Hadron Collider, buried beneath the French-Swiss border, is the world's largest particle accelerator. It smashes protons together at near light speed to explore the building blocks of matter. In 2012, it confirmed the Higgs boson's existence, a discovery that completed the standard model of physics and earned a Nobel Prize. The Bronze Age eruption of Thera on the island now called Santorini was one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history. Around 1600 BCE, it blasted so much ash into the air that it likely caused tsunamis and climate shifts. Many historians believe it played a role in the collapse of the Minoan civilization. A cyborg is a being that combines biological and mechanical parts, a fusion of flesh and technology. The concept blends science and philosophy, from prosthetic limbs and neural implants today to futuristic ideas of enhanced humans. The term, short for cybernetic organism, was first coined in the 1960s during early space research. An appeal to authority is a logical fallacy, where someone argues that something must be true because an expert says so. For example, citing a celebrity's opinion on medicine isn't valid evidence. While expertise matters, this fallacy reminds us that even authorities can be mistaken, or speaking outside their field. Noether's theorem, proposed by mathematician Emmy Noether in 1915, links symmetry and conservation laws in physics. It explains why energy, momentum, and charge stay constant under specific transformations. In short, every symmetry in nature comes with a rule of preservation, a profound idea that underpins modern theoretical physics. Flag Smasher is a Marvel Comics villain who fights against nationalism, dreaming of a borderless world. His ideology may be extreme, but it echoes timeless debates about identity and unity. The Corpus Juris Civilis, ordered by Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century, was a massive codification of Roman law. It organized centuries of scattered legal texts into one coherent system. This work became the backbone of European legal tradition, influencing everything from medieval courts to modern civil law systems. The agora in ancient Greece was more than a marketplace. It was the social heart of the city-state. Citizens gathered there to trade, debate politics, and hear public announcements. In Athens, it was where democracy itself was practiced, blending economics, philosophy, and governance in one open square. Grubbs's test is a statistical method used to detect outliers in a data set that follows a normal distribution. It identifies whether a value is suspiciously distant from the rest, like spotting one test score wildly higher than others. Scientists and data analysts use it to ensure accuracy and avoid skewed conclusions. The Banach-Tarski paradox sounds impossible. It claims that a solid ball can be split into a finite number of pieces and reassembled into two identical copies of the original. It's a purely mathematical concept that defies physical logic, relying on the strange properties of infinite sets in abstract geometry. The Kolmogorov-Smirnov test is a non-parametric statistical tool that compares distributions. It checks whether a sample fits a theoretical model or whether two samples come from the same population. Because it doesn't assume normality, it's widely used in data science and physics for testing randomness and model accuracy. In law, trespass means entering someone else's property without their permission. It might sound simple, but it's one of the oldest legal concepts in history, stretching back to medieval England. Whether it's stepping across a fence line or building over a boundary, trespass deals with protecting ownership and personal space, something societies have valued for centuries. A number station is one of the strangest things on shortwave radio. It broadcasts strings of random numbers, words, or tones, sometimes read by mechanical voices. Their purpose remains a mystery, though many believe they were used during the Cold War to send coded messages to spies. These eerie broadcasts still occasionally appear today, drifting through the static. The fallacy of the single cause happens when someone blames one simple reason for something that actually had many causes. For example, saying, "The economy crashed because of greed," ignores complex factors like policy, markets, and timing. It's a mental shortcut our brains like, but reality, as always, is messier and layered. The Goose-Henshin effect is a curious optical phenomenon where a beam of light slightly shifts sideways when it bounces off a surface at a specific angle. It was first described by German physicists Fritz Goose and Hilda Henshin in 1947. The shift is tiny, often just a fraction of a wavelength, but it reveals how light behaves as both wave and ray. Bragg's law explains how waves like X-rays scatter when they hit a crystal. Discovered by father and son physicists William and Lawrence Bragg in 1913, it helped scientists map atomic structures. The principle is simple. A thermopolium was the ancient Roman equivalent of a fast food stand. These street-side shops served ready-to-eat meals, often stews or wine, from clay jars set into stone counters. The Holocene extinction refers to the ongoing loss of species during our current geological epoch. Unlike past mass extinctions caused by asteroids or volcanoes, this one stems largely from human activity, deforestation, pollution, and climate change. Scientists estimate species are disappearing thousands of times faster than the natural rate, reshaping Earth's biodiversity in real time. The Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall is the largest known structure in the universe, a colossal web of galaxies stretching 10 billion light-years away. It's so vast that light takes billions of years to cross it. This discovery challenged earlier ideas about cosmic uniformity, showing that even the universe's empty regions hold immense hidden architecture. The Tipler cylinder is a theoretical idea proposed by physicist Frank Tipler in 1974. It imagines a massive, infinitely long cylinder spinning at near-light speed, twisting space-time so much that closed time loops, essentially paths to the past, might form. It's fascinating math, though real-world physics says such an object couldn't actually exist. Newton's law of universal gravitation states that every particle in the universe attracts every other, with a force depending on their masses and distance apart. Formulated by Isaac Newton in 1687, it unified celestial and earthly motion. Whether it's an apple falling or planets orbiting, this simple equation describes gravity's universal pull. A geodesic is the shortest path between 2 points on a curved surface. On a globe, for instance, airplane routes follow geodesics, not straight lines on a map, but arcs across the Earth. Click here to find out what else I found. What are you waiting for? Click it. Learn something. That's literally why you watch this channel.